Okay, I hope you're all in and you can all hear me. If you can wave your hand, if you can raise your hand just to say that everything's working and you can hear everything and stuff, perfect. Well, 1, 2. Great. That's brilliant. Thank you. We've got more people coming and I'm just going to keep admitting them as they come, but I wanted to start on time because I know evenings are precious. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Miss Murray. I'm the careers leader at SBL Academy, and I'm really pleased that this is going to be the first one, hopefully, of many that where we're going to be introducing you to apprenticeships and everything else. So we've got Alex Richards here from the Western Training Providers Network, who will give you the basics all about apprenticeships and a whole presentation. If you have questions, because obviously this is a question and answer session as well, you'll see the chat. And if you just put it in the chat, I'm going to be monitoring the chat and then I can ask Alex the questions at the end. So before we start, does anybody have any questions? No. Okay, I think you're ready then, Alex.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Claire. Hi, everyone. As Claire said, Alex Richards, Western Training Provider Network. I'm actually representing the National Apprenticeship Service. I've got a contract with the Department of Education to give independent advice and guidance to schools all about apprenticeship. So I'm really pleased to be here. Ran this last year. This is my second year doing it. The network that I run has around about 35 training providers, colleges and university in it. They deliver the vast majority of apprenticeships in the region, so I've got lots of knowledge. And if you do have questions, please feel free to ask them. We can answer them at the end or even in the middle if they're pertinent then. And then if you go away and you think of a question and maybe you didn't ask it tonight, we can either follow up on another session, so that's great. So I'll go straight into it. It's the basics of apprenticeships, trying to give you as much knowledge as you possibly can get. So I'll put up some slides for you all. Here we go. So introduction to apprenticeships. Hoping you can see that. So what are apprenticeships? Well, basically an apprenticeship, it is a job. So there's an employer out there and they're looking to hire someone. They're looking to hire, generally in many examples, it could be a young person. They're looking to hire them. They want to employ them. They want that person to produce goods and services for them, and they're going to pay them a wage for that. So you get paid to be an apprentice. You'll be working for at least 30 hours a week. So there's like a contract to go with that. Contract of employment, so all sorts of benefits, holiday pay, sick pay, all sorts of things. So it's a proper contract of employment. But the key thing is it's not just a job. So this is the best of both worlds. You would be working, but you're also studying. And you're studying towards a job-related qualification. So that's key. So it's like doing theory, something like, say, history or geography. Apprenticeships have changed a lot in the last few years. Employers are designing them now, and they're designed specifically around the job role. So it might be something like software developer or nurse. It's something very practical, not necessarily practical hands-on, but it's a practical role that they would be studying towards. So it's a job-related qualification. And the key thing is this is a real job with real responsibilities, like I said. So employers are looking to hire people. It will be competitive. If they're paying you, they want you to be the best that they can possibly get hold of. So it's competitive to get an apprenticeship. Once you're working for that employer, you'll be doing a real job with real responsibilities. Okay, so there's always a few myths about apprenticeships. So I'll just go bust a few of those because, like I said, things have changed dramatically. I think there's a phone going in the background, which I can't quite read, so apologies about that. So you do earn a salary. In the past, people have sort of said your apprenticeship is a training contract. Employers don't always take people on. That's just not true. 90% of people who start an apprenticeship finish the apprenticeship, and the employers want to keep hold of them. At the end of the apprenticeship, it sort of rolls straight into the job straight away. Employers are investing in someone as an apprentice. It costs them. They need to hire them. They need to develop them. They need to mentor them. They need to train them. There's no return on investment at the beginning. That comes later on. So they're investing in that apprentice. They don't want to let them go. They want to keep them, or they want to develop them further. So 90% of apprentices stay in work and with the employer afterwards. And in fact, many employers are actually seeing it as a way to get staff who stay. Retention is quite often quite hard for employers, keeping hold of the best staff. The retention rates with apprentices are really high. Apprentices see that the employers invested in them, so they want to stay with them and work with them and keep with them. So it's really high retention rates, which employers find really attractive. So is there social life? So it's not like going to university. Obviously, you're not all going, lots of students all going together. But there is, obviously, you get your evenings and weekends free as an apprentice. You've got money in your pocket as well to spend as well. And you could even join at the same time as other apprentices. So it depends on the size of the company, and that's a possibility. You can also gain a degree. So you don't have to go to university to do a degree. You can do a degree via apprenticeship. So there are degree apprenticeships available, and you actually do study with a university to gain that degree. So there's recognised universities, some of the best in the country, which deliver degree apprenticeships. There's also no fees to pay whatsoever. So to do that degree apprenticeship, to do any apprenticeship, there's no fees to pay to get that kind of education and training. And it can be really top quality. There's no fees to pay whatsoever. That's paid for by the government, or it's paid for by the business. You can even do things like relocate. So we know that there's some students who think, going to university is a great way to sort of escape from home and go and travel the country, go and stay somewhere else, get that bit of independence. But that can even be done with an apprenticeship. So I know of a young lady who she did a talk for us at Ashton Park School in Bristol, and she came from Plymouth. She got her apprenticeship at Airbus. It was in some kind of computer science, data analytics or something, up at Airbus. It was the degree apprenticeship. She had applied. It was quite hard to get it. When she got it, she was on a really good salary, and so she moved straight up from Plymouth and moved to Bristol, and that was going to be her base while she was working at Airbus. So you can relocate. And I know of another young lady who's used apprenticeships. So apprenticeships, and this is really key to know, and especially perhaps in these difficult times when people are thinking, my GCSEs aren't going to be the same as other years. Apprenticeships are a really good way to continue your education further when you're in the workplace. So you don't have to stop with your first apprenticeship. You can use it to keep studying all the way through. So people are doing apprenticeships in their 30s and 40s, and they're using them for career progression. So you could do levels 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll talk about this later. So it's a way to keep upskilling and progressing in your career. So I know of a young lady, she was in Bristol. She started work as an apprenticeship. So it's one of these roles which are really modern. The employers designed it. It was digital marketing. Lots of businesses are looking for digital marketers, especially younger people who've got those sort of, those digital skills, which perhaps olders aren't so good at. She started digital marketing, took her a year and a half. That was level 3, like A levels. She did really well, and they said to her, do you want to go on to a further level? We think you're really good. She said, brilliant, love to. They said, you're doing project management a lot in work. Would you like to do a project management level 4, like an HNC? She said, that would be great. So she went on and did that. That took her another year and a half. So now she's 3 years into a role, and she's switched slightly towards another role. She's doing project management now. She's got digital marketing under her belt, project management. She's got 2 qualifications. She's 19. She's been at work for 3 years, loads and loads of work experience. And the business turned around to her and they said, do you want to move to London? We've got a head office up there. We really could do with people like you. And she said, great, that's what I want to do. So she could afford to live in London. She's got all that experience. She's only 19, got qualifications. She turned around to her mum and said, I still might do a degree. I may do a degree apprenticeship if they're available through work, or I may even do another year or so in work, and they may leave and go to university. I'm still pretty young, get that experience, but in my part-time at university, I won't be working, say, sort of hospitality or shops for a job. I'm going to be doing digital marketing freelance. I'm going to earn some fantastic money. So there's all sorts of opportunities with apprenticeships. You can carry on. It's a way to continue lifelong learning for free in the workplace. but it's not the easy route necessarily. So some apprenticeships are incredibly difficult. I know someone who's just starting a master's degree apprenticeship, incredibly difficult. They can be difficult to get as well. And you've got to imagine at the moment with the job market's going to be down a bit, they're probably going to be more competitive. So anyone can get one, but you've got to work hard to get it. So it's not always the easy route. So you're going to have to put some hard work in. Okay, so the range of apprenticeships. So this is a great one for parents to see, because when I left school, there weren't many apprenticeships available, and they were probably available in sort of car mechanics. There might have been some hairdressing, might have been some engineering, construction, not a lot else. Well, as you can see, employers are in the driving seat with the design now, and they're saying these are the modern sectors that we need to fill. We need job roles in these sectors because we've got the work. So we need cybersecurity people. We need people in surveying. We need people in project management. We need people in the creative and digital sector. These are just a few of the sectors which are now available. So even, nursing, you need to get a degree to be a nurse, but you can do that via an apprenticeship. Okay, so lots of opportunities available. Okay, and so the employers out there as well. You've probably seen all of these brand names before. All of these deliver apprenticeships. And in fact, larger companies, the numbers of them increased in delivering apprenticeships because what's called the apprenticeship levy. So a few years ago, the government said, whilst we're changing it and putting employers in the driving seat, we're actually going to get more investment. We want larger employers to invest more in apprenticeships. So we're going to tax larger employers levy. They can either give that money back to the Treasury, or they can spend it on apprenticeships, and that's the only way they can spend it. So lots of employers who were previously only graduate employers have turned around and said, right, well, we don't want the money to go away, let's spend it on apprentices, let's spend it on the supply chain. So lots of these new companies have come on board who are now taking apprenticeships. So let's also have a look inside the company. So sometimes it can be a bit confusing looking for apprenticeships, wondering what sort of roles are available. So it's, for example, if you just say, like, let's take an example of a company, Hargreaves Lansdown. They're based in the centre of Bristol, a big finance company. You might think finance company, finance apprenticeship. But within Hargreaves Lansdown, they've got all of these departments within that one business. And all of those departments, there is an apprenticeship which could fit into those departments. So I know of another young lady who started at Hargreaves Lansdown, level 3 finance apprenticeship. She did really well and she passed it, and they said, do you want to move somewhere else within the business? And she said, I'm really enjoying computers. I've seen there's some roles opening up in the data, in the cybersecurity, other opportunities there. And she moved on to a degree apprenticeship in cybersecurity within the same business. So that's moving from level 3 up to a degree, same business, and she's paid the whole time. So loads of opportunities, and there's lots of apprenticeships you wouldn't have known that are available, are available when you look beneath the surface. So here are the levels. It's not quite straightforward, but I'll give you the straightforward interpretation, then talk a bit about it. So level 2 is like GCSEs, level 3 is like A levels, 4 is like HNC, 5 is like HND, level 6 is like a degree, level 7 is like a master's, and there's even a level 8, which there isn't really an apprenticeship, is like a doctorship. You'll find that most sort of 16 to 18s are starting out at sort of a level 2 or level 3 apprenticeship. If you've got A levels, you might be looking at maybe a level 4 apprenticeship. There might be those available for you. You could even jump straight to a level 6 because there are level 5 apprenticeships, but you might jump from, say, A level straight to a degree apprenticeship. But it's not quite linear. There are some fantastic apprenticeships out there at level 3 which A level students are applying for, and they're pitched at level 3 A level students. So it's not like a sideways move. You're not doing the same qualifications again, because they're very different. It's all based around skills in the workplace. So we sort of interviewed Thatcher's the other day, Thatcher's Cider, who've got a phenomenal apprenticeship program down there, all different levels, all different ways they look after students. They've really thrown everything at it. They take on A-level students even into their level 2 apprenticeships and then move them up through the business, giving them lots of opportunities. So don't think it's a sideways or backwards move sometimes, because it might be that step into the company, and that level, that opportunity will be giving you technical knowledge about the role. Some of the higher ones like 4 and 5, they're even pitched at sort of mid-managers. So if you're leaving school, it's certainly something you couldn't get with your first role. Okay, so that's a little bit about the levels. It's perhaps more fluid than school is. So how's the learning delivered? So this is a great thing. So whilst you're working in your working week, 20% of that time you're going to get paid to learn. And there's a variety of methods that you can learn. That's really down to the training provider, how you might be learning. So traditional methods for college might be 1 day a week. You go to a college. Universities tend to do a fair bit of block release, so they get students, apprentices from all over the country, maybe going to the university in a half-term week when the students have left, or in the springtime, and they all go there and they stay there in the digs, and they'll be studying like that, and then they'll go back off to the workplace again. Some businesses don't do any release at all, so some of the bigger business might even have their own classrooms, and others are just doing it in the workplace, but you do it away from the work desk. Everyone's different, so it all depends on what type of training provider, what type of delivery they're offering that the employer uses. I would say at the moment, obviously with COVID, much more is online learning. Almost everything is online learning, and some apprenticeships, they're front loading this 20%, so you're doing a lot of it perhaps at home. You're doing that, learning that theory side of it, so you're sort of front loading that, and then you'll go into the practical stuff later. Okay, so that's how you would be doing the learning. So how do they compare to university, full-time university apprenticeships? Well, it's almost the opposite. So if you go to university, you would get around about 16 hours contact time. Well, this is in normal times, you would 16 hours contact time a week, and that would be, say, tutorials or lectures. The rest of the time in the week you should be studying, or you might have some sports to do, or you hang out with your friends. You might have part-time jobs. And then perhaps part-time jobs weekends and evenings as well. If you're doing a degree apprenticeship, it's the opposite. So you are working all week. 20% of that time you'll do some study. So it might be 1 day, or they might break it up into sections. You'll get your obviously weekends and evenings off, and where you can sort of see friends and that sort of stuff. But you won't need to do a part-time job because you've already got a full-time job. But that study you're going to do, you're still going to have to fit some in at weekends and evenings as well. So I've spoken to degree apprentices, and they said it's extremely difficult. There's a lot of work to do because you're working full time and you're studying as well, trying to fit a degree in. I've spoken to employers, and they actually say that the degree apprentices actually fly up the career ladder much quicker because of the intensity of the work they're doing, and also because of the type of learning they're doing. So they'll learn some theory and they immediately put it into a work experience context. So they learn something and then they practice it, and it's much stickier learning. So actually they learn their skills, theory, practice, and move up the career ladder a lot quicker. But like I said, it's tough. But there's no fees whatsoever at all. So there's over 100 universities doing it. So sort of top universities like Exeter University are delivering. UE deliver over 1,000 degree apprenticeships. Loads of universities are doing them. Okay. So vacancy. So this was taken a little while ago. So this was it with I think this was around about November time. So we're potentially in lockdown then, or just coming out of a better time when there was some more vacancies around. They're flexible, so it is all employer driven. Every apprenticeship is employer driven. If there's not an employer who wants to take someone on or develop one of their staff, there isn't an apprenticeship. So this was in November. We had a look around Clifton, what was available, had a look online. There was 58 vacancies within 5 miles, 10 miles 81, 15 miles 111, 20 miles 139. And this can change daily because employers will be hiring at all times. It doesn't all follow the academic calendar. We'll come to that in a later session, things like how to apply for them. I will touch on it, but here in those vacancies, this is what some of them looked at. So we talked about Hargreaves earlier on. They're offering 16,000 for a Unix support, so that's a tech apprenticeship. There's paralegals, there's apprentice journalists there for 18,500. Paralegal again, infrastructure technician and PR. So it sort of gives you an idea. Obviously, there's loads of different apprenticeships out there. Some can start at around about 8,000. You see the one at the bottom, they were sort of had a bracket 8 to 17, and some are at the higher end. So I've seen some around about 26,000. The higher they are, the more applicants there are. A lot more applicants. But it's not just about obviously the money when it comes to that first job. It's about what the employer is offering as a whole experience. And some sectors just don't pay as well as others. So, you know, you could get up to a really high position in that sector, but you start off at a lower pay at the beginning. Okay, so how do you find apprenticeships? So just to do the basics, because we're going to come back and do a later session. One of the best ways is to find an apprenticeship service, it's a government service. All the medium to smaller businesses all put their vacancies on here. You can register, you can have a look, and you need to do research. So you need to do research. You need to find out what's out there and what's available. It's a good idea to try things like little quizzes, career pilot, find out what might suit you by asking a personality quiz. Then you find them, you can search and apply. You can even put alerts in, like if you see an apprenticeship you like, and let's say you look today and there was one available, but you needed to start next week. Obviously, you can't do that. You need to finish your school year. You need to finish your exams. You could put an alert in, so if it was, say, let's say software developer, and anytime another one of those comes up, it will pop up and it will message you. And then you can contact the company, so you can contact them direct as well. So some of the larger companies, they wouldn't even go on this site, but so you can contact companies direct as well. So just a few other places to look. Like I said, people, some businesses, the larger ones, which get so many applicants, they don't generally put it on the Find an Apprenticeship site. People like PwC, BBC, they might not go on there, but you can look at those companies and follow them and find out when their vacancies go live. You can even follow businesses on social media, find out about their apprenticeship systems, and even friends and family. There's lots of people who've got apprenticeships because they've heard from a friend of a friend of a family that there are apprenticeships available in that company, and they go that way. A good site to look at is Find an Apprenticeship. It's Amazing Apprenticeships. Really good site designed for parents, students, and teachers. On there, they've got something called Vacancy Snapshot. So they get some of the biggest companies in the country, and then you can have a look and see what their vacancies are like. And it'll talk to you all about the differences in recruitment that they might have, the processes, so you can get a feel to the sort of the way to do things. It's very different than applying through UCAS for universities. It's much the system isn't as set. It can be all year round. Vacancies are open. Okay, I'm hoping that I've answered a lot for the basics in the beginning. There's contact details for the National Apprenticeship Service, who I'm representing today. There's also, I spoke about Amazing Apprenticeships, so that's what some of their resources can look like. Really good stuff on that website. Quizzes, interviews, big assemblies, all sorts of stuff on there. Sixth form guides, so that's a great resource which you can utilise. I think that's it really. So I will probably take the slides down. Any questions, I'm very happy to answer them, and I'll stop the slides so you can perhaps see me. Yeah, any questions?
That's brilliant, Alex. Thank you very much for that. Any messages, just type them in the chat. I would say as well that the Amazing Apprenticeships, we get that and we put the parent pack on our website as well. So I know the new one came out, it was a few days ago, wasn't it, Alex, last week, I think?
That's right, yeah, the January edition came out, just come out. Yeah.
So that'll be my job tomorrow, is I'll get that onto the SBL Careers website. And if you just go into the apprentices page on the careers website, you'll be able to see it there and everybody can look through that.
There are a couple of hands up. I don't know if that was from the beginning when we asked them to put their hands up, or if they wanted to type the question in the chat box. That might be an idea if they're able to do that.
There's no questions. My internet dropped out, unfortunately, during some of it. It's just my internet connection, unfortunately. But I was going to ask, I'm not sure if you covered it, but would you say there are any industries which are more particularly suited to doing an apprenticeship to get involved in, rather than going the traditional route of sort of further education and higher education? Would you say actually industry, it's a really good idea to start off as an apprentice?
I don't think there are. I think that, there's, what you'll find now is there's a lot more apprenticeships available in a lot more sectors than what there ever was. So sectors which probably only took on graduates, they've changed very much. And I think the introduction of the levy, where larger employers were now getting taxed, has really sort of refocused their efforts to think, actually, let's start up a graduate program and we'll do an apprenticeship program alongside it. So I think the opportunities in many sectors is much more open these days. I don't think there's any particularly well, you might think construction might be because you're straight on the tools straight away almost immediately, or some of those practical ones. But you know, I do know that construction really likes apprentices, but sometimes they like them to have gone to college for a year or so first to just get used to the tools, get used to some of those skills, and then take them on as apprenticeships. But I speak to employers all the time saying, I wish I'd have done one. Even when they're taking on people, and employers who embrace it are thinking that this is a fantastic idea. So yeah, it's certainly great. I would say at the moment, though, obviously there are going to be less apprenticeships available, so it's something to be cautious about, because we're coming out. We're all going to go into a bit of an economic downturn if we're not here already, which we are. So it is going to be more difficult. At present, obviously, there won't be any vacancies in things like hospitality and retail, particularly. The growing sectors which are strong at the moment, even in the middle of this pandemic, are construction, healthcare, as you can imagine, things like digital, things like HR, some of the professional services, business admin. A few of those are strong at the moment. When the country can open up, a lot more come up. So I just saw a question there.
Yes, we've got a couple of questions, which is great. One from Alison, which is one that I was going to ask actually, which is, when should you look to apply for an apprenticeship in year 11? Because this is something that is a difficult conversation with students, because obviously those who are just, you know, they're going to college or they're going to the post-16 and stuff, they're sort of sorted. But often if you look for apprenticeship vacancies, if they're looking now, will they be the ones to start, obviously, because they've got to finish their schooling as well? So when should they start?
Okay, so this is the difficult thing. It's not straightforward. So like UCAS, it's all at the same time. You want to start early. You want to see it's going to be a whole year project. You start looking early. So some of the employers who get the most applicants actually start looking early. So they start seeking out apprentices in around about September and October, some of the earlier ones. I think obviously this at the moment where we are, they've probably pushed it forward a bit. I know some of the larger companies were staggering there. I was on a call yesterday with a load of people up in Parliament who were pushing apprenticeships, and they had a really big I've forgotten the name of it now, big aerospace, BAE Systems. And they said what they changed was, rather than taking everybody on in September, they've staggered it. So they're doing a cohort in September, then they're looking at January and then March, because of what was happening. So there were later dates for them. The bigger companies will open up early. They might do sort of October till March time, and then they've had enough applicants, they shut it, and then they work through those applicants all the way, and then they give the final people, they say that you know, you've got it in around about June. They might wait for those final results and say you've got your apprenticeship, but they keep in contact with them all the way through, and they'll work them through the system to find out, you know, they'll do different kinds of interviews with them. So for some of them, there's a load of hoops to jump. I know BT, it took something like nine months or something last year to get from start to the finish to get them. So you need to look all year. You need to work out a bit of a plan. You need to be prepared that you won't get some. You need to be prepared that some you can't go for because they sort of hire the next day and they employ the next day, and it might be in mid-March. But just keep looking. There'll be some that start early, and then you can start in September time. You know, you can get hired early, finish off school, have a holiday, and start in September. So there's those who do that, and then you'll find more start appearing round about April, May time, looking for those students who are finishing. So it can be all the way through. So you want to keep touch with it and keep looking throughout the year.
That's what I've found in the past with students as well, is, you know, it can be a bit nerve-wracking for them because they feel like they're not yet sorted, but it's just a bit too early to be looking for those.
Yeah, but don't worry. I was with a class the other week, and they said we've been looking, we've been finding nothing at the moment. It's been, you know, I said, well, don't worry. It's just the way the system works. You'll see more appearing later, but some people do get lucky, so you might get one of the big schemes. Get on those. So like Thatcher's, like I said, I don't know how many they take on. Maybe I can't take on more than 10 a year, probably less than that. But they start really early because they're trying to get into that cycle where the best candidates are, who might be looking to go to university and that sort of stuff. But they're after level 2s and level 3 students. Yeah, so it's not one set thing, so keep looking all the way through.
And again, those vacancies, sorry, they're the ones,
Okay.
again, that I'm starting to get the emails from you, so that's really good. And again, I can put those on the SBL Careers website. They get emailed through, so I would just keep putting those on the SBL Careers website, and you can just keep checking those when they're updated. We've got another question from Matt. Are there advantages in starting at 16 rather than 18 regarding availability of vacancies? It's a good question.
It's a really good question. We are finding that employers are moving up the age groups a little bit, moving more towards 18, 19-year-olds. So you can start an apprenticeship at 25, 30, 40, whatever. Older candidates usually are in work when they do an apprenticeship. They're using it as career progression. Usually new hires, it's around about sort of 16 to 20, 24 age group. We're finding that employers are moving up a little bit in the age towards the 18. You know, if you're 16, there are certain employers are looking for that early intake. It's not across the board. So it'll be specific sectors which may be looking for that early intake if you're around about 16. Otherwise, you need to be a mature candidate. You need to stand out. You need to be looking like you're really employable. I've helped young people who are 16 get into employers, and they weren't particularly looking for young ones. They didn't think they'd perhaps be mature, but they just absolutely were brilliant at interview, and their applications were brilliant. So they sailed in, and they just did fantastically well. And sometimes it can be a bit about confidence. That 2 years extra or a few years extra can just give a little bit more confidence, a bit more life experience. If you're 16, though, you can apply this. I've helped plenty get opportunities.
Brilliant, thank you. There's no other questions come through from parents or students, but write them in if you do. One question I was going to ask, again, I'm sorry if you covered this when my internet dropped out. I generally advise them as well to register on the government website as soon as possible. Would you still go with that? Or the
I would.
Yep.
I would. And like I was trying to say there, though, that not all vacancies are on there. And that's the hard thing for students. Like if you're applying for UCAS, all the universities, it's all on there. But it's not the same with apprenticeships. On there, you'll get all the smaller to medium-sized employers. You get a lot of local employers, which is great. So you do need to register on there, and you can even put in alerts for the things you're looking for. But then you need to start thinking about what you might like to do and just try and get a bit of direction, because then you can start researching companies or sectors, other places so on UCAS, they have vacancies for degree apprenticeships, and they can looking at places like Not Going to Uni. And so there's a few sites out there which would have other vacancies on them, but you could look at those as well. What I would suggest, and also is it's really important to have a plan A, plan B, and a plan C. Don't think you're going to get an apprenticeship because you want one. They can be difficult to get. Some people are unlucky the first year round, but they get them another year. They have apply and they get it. You're not guaranteed it. It can be very competitive. Don't worry if you get rejected. It's no reflection on you. It just meant there was someone else who's perhaps more suitable for that particular role. And you might not get it a few times. Don't worry. It's just life. That's what happens when you're applying for jobs.
I think that's good, because historically apprenticeships have been difficult, but as you say, particularly at the moment with the current situation we're facing and with the economic hardship that some companies are looking at, I think they're going to be even more sought after as well and competitive.
Yeah, they will be. Definitely, there will be some of the better ones. I think there was a couple of good questions there. I know there's another couple of questions, I think. There
is. How can you apply with predicted grades? Cheryl asks. What if you get the job, then don't get the grades?
Well, it's not like trying to get a course, really. It's trying to get a job. So employers, if you ask them what the 5 things most important to an employer, none of them would be the grades. They all want things like the ability to work in a team, the ability to take instruction, and quite often they have, well, some of the larger companies have things like assessment centres, or they'll be looking for those things where they interview. So they'll be looking for ways that they think this person would fit my team. They're not going to base it all on the grades. It would be about the whole package. So if you slipped with a couple of grades, if you're saying I was expecting 9 A stars or whatever, you didn't get it, or perhaps lesser, I don't think they'll do it necessarily on there. It might be that some of them do say 5 A to C's. you would need to check with them to sort of say, you know, this is what I'm predicting. 5 A to C is what happens if I don't get them, but check with them because every employer might be different. They might be, I want you because you're the candidate we're after. Because if you imagine employers are hiring someone they want as part of their team. It's not just about grades. It's like, who do I want in my team? Who do we want working with us? They're going to have to work with you properly. Ultimately, you know, every day in a face-to-face environment, you know, once we're past this. But yeah, it's not just grades they're hiring on. So I don't think that's going to be the be-all and end-all of it.
No. And we've been covering some of that in our careers tutor sessions as well, where we're looking at hard skills and soft skills. And I would say for apprenticeships as well, you know, you need to get those soft skills built up as well, don't you? So you've got that creativity and all those other skills that you can present a rounded package.
Yeah, and do you know what? Actually, young people have all these skills. What they're missing is they're missing the ability to relate it and be able to tell an employer that they've got their skills. They can't articulate it. So what's really good for schools and parents to go through is to say, you know, you did a presentation online the other day in front of all your class. Therefore, you've got employers look for presentation skills. Exactly. So in the workplace, you might be asked to present like I am today in front of a team or in front of a load of strangers, and that you've done it already. Or you might lead a team as in a club, or you might have resilience by keeping up with your violin lessons over a year, you know, and going through the pain of having to practice all the time to get to the next grade. Students have lots and lots of these skills and they're displaying them at home with teamwork and all sorts of stuff. It's being able to articulate it is the difficult thing. And I did some work with UE a while ago, and they said that even their students as graduates weren't able to articulate all the skills that all the skills they had, and they had to sort of teach them on how to learn how to reflect on what they've got, soft skills, how it applies and how it might apply in the workplace. The STAR interviewing technique is really good. That's a really good way of having a technique on how to answer a question, and it gives you a little model to do it. So that's good to learn.
Do you want to just run through that for?
Yeah. So I'll just very quickly. So yeah, STAR interviewing. So if someone's asking you, it's like a situational. Can you give us an example of where you did this? So you know, we're in our role, we're looking for people who might become leaders of the future. Can you give us an example of where you might have led on something, or what did you do? So you quickly think back. You think back, okay, so there was a project. So STAR, so you explain the situation, you explain the task that you had to do, what actions were required, and then the results which came in that. So you say, okay, yeah, we were given a project at school. The project was so-and-so, so that was the task. I had to get the team together to work. We divvied out different activities to do. Then we got them all back in. We did 2 or 3 situations where we all worked together, and I sort of managed the team, make sure that everybody had their chance to speak. Then we got our presentation together, and then I presented it. I felt it was good. I made sure I got feedback from each member of the team, and then I presented it at the end. And then we got a great result from, so you do situation, what it was, the task you were given, the activity that you did, or the actions that you did, and then the results. We got top marks. Everybody said it was the best presentation. They said I was a really great leader. But you can use that STAR for almost any situational question, but you've got to practice it because it takes some time to get used to it. So
yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We've got another question come through from Michelle, which is another good one. What do you advise for kids who want a practical apprenticeship, i.e. a trade, but they can't find anyone to take them on?
So yeah, so these are slightly different. The trade ones, they can be slightly different. It's the way the sort of colleges run them is a bit of an old school way. With many apprenticeships, you'll find the vacancy is posted on Find an Apprenticeship, or the employers will be posting on their sites that they're going to be hiring, and this is the process. Or there's another few sites out there which you'll find. Amazing Apprenticeships will sort of direct you to them, I think. With the trades ones, quite a lot of people is you get offered an opportunity to do an apprenticeship when you apply to the college. They might go through basic English and maths. If you're trying to do electrical, you might be having to give predicted grades for science as well, because they can be quite technical. And then you get an offer. They'll say, great, we'll offer you the chance to join our apprenticeship, but then you have to go and find them. So it's very different. So the vacancy isn't advertised, you've actually got to go and find them. And the trades is very much who you know, not what you know. So it's all about networks out there. So who do you know in your family who knows a plumber? And do they know of any other plumbers, or do they know of any other builders? And a lot of it, you're going to have to put the groundwork in like that. You might need to ring up companies just blind. And I know of parents who do it for their children. My son's so-and-so finishing. Others get little postcards, and they might go down to a place which serves paint to painters or electrical goods to electricians, a trade warehouse, and they'll put apprentice looking for apprenticeship in electrical. Can you help? Small things like that, and people get apprenticeships. So it is a bit of resilience in it, a bit of cold calling almost. Anybody, friends and family can help. That's a good way to do it. Some of the training providers and colleges like On-Site will give you some support in doing that. But, you know, the trades can be a self-employed career, and where you've got to build networks to keep yourself in employment. So it's really the start of what's going to be your life. So you're going to have to get used to it. It's a skill worth learning at the beginning, because you'll need it for the rest of your life, these kind of networks that you'll build. So I suppose that's the only advice I can do. It can be a bit grueling for some people.
I would just say as well, Michelle, and anybody else as well that's struggling with that, if you want to email me, I can always, what I've done in the past as well is given out details of people who have offered work experience, because they've been sort of receptive to the work experience scheme. So quite often they will be quite happy to, you know, or at least sort of consider an apprentice as well. So if you do need any help, just email me and I can pull off a list of companies that have offered work experience to the students in the past. And then, as Alex says, then unfortunately it is calling them and getting in touch with them. But that does give you a starting point as well. Yeah,
and you're going to be doing construction always works on networks. It's who knows who. It gets the job at the end of the day. Construction is buoyant at the moment. Everybody thought it was going to really go down the pan. At the beginning, everything shut down. We've got Hinckley down the road, which is the biggest building site in Europe. That's soaking up people, skilled people. So everyone else around is doing all the other million building projects, extensions, because people can't afford a new house, so they put an extension on the house. There is loads of work. If you don't get an apprenticeship and you're a practical person, you know, it's not the end of the world. Do a year or so in college. I've heard that employers do try to get those students who've done a year or so in college, because they just might be a little bit better. So if you don't get it this time round, that's probably a good shout. Get a few more skills behind you, then have another go. Don't give up.
Brilliant. Does anybody else have any further questions at all? Feel free to type them in. I can't think of anything else. You've really covered a lot of it, Alex. Thank you. What we're thinking of doing, Alex and I, is doing some extra sessions as well, where we'll go on more advanced. So what would you be talking about in those ones,
So I think I would probably do that journey to getting one. We actually covered a fair bit of it, so I'm going to have to add some extra stuff in there, really. You might get really value for your money. So not that this is free from the government, which is great. What I think we'd look more in the process. So some of it we've missed where we started late, but we can look at some of those sites. We can I can put up links to some of the sites to look at. We can even go as far as looking at things like good applications or where to apply. We can even sign people up to find an apprenticeship. So we can do a live session where everybody joins in. We can look at the site, what it is, and then you can sign in. And so actually people are signed up to it and they can look at the vacancies live themselves. We can do a session like that, but it's going to be more like the process and applying and what you might be looking at. And I think that's the next day, because like I said, it is a project over a number of months. You need a bit of durability. You need to keep pushing yourself forward. You will get a couple of knocks on the way. You might not know what you're applying for, just that you want one, and you'll start discovering yourself on your journey. And you might not have a clue what half of them mean, and that'll take a bit of research. But it's interesting. It's almost just, if you would go to university, you're only going to do the same when you finish university as a graduate. It just brings it forward a little bit earlier. It's just what all of us have to do. Yeah,
brilliant. So I will be sending out details with that once we've sorted out a date with Alex. So hopefully, I think it would be really good for those of you who've come along today, which has been absolutely fantastic, to then sort of follow that on. So yeah, I will be sending that out, and we'll just be getting as much information about apprenticeships out there as possible, because I think particularly for our generation, the apprenticeships now are very different to how they were back in the day, as people say. And it's good to just, particularly with parents as well, just to let parents know exactly how they are nowadays, that they are a very different beast.
And I think at the moment it's very, very, very difficult, particularly for young people from year 10 to 13 who are going through these times at the moment with a fractured education system because of COVID, just losing a bit of confidence, having a bit of fear for the future, and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be, it's not going to be as easy for me later on. Apprenticeships offer you the chance for lifelong learning. They don't just stop with the first job. You can carry on doing it. We know, there's more people who are doing apprenticeships who are actually employed than those who were recruited. So there's loads of opportunities out there. This isn't you're not going to be hamstrung now. Plenty of time to catch up and do stuff later on. So it's good to be able to get these information out there so that you don't feel that you're going to be worse off. Plenty of time to push on and do start that journey of lifelong learning. And in fact, the workplace changes so rapidly these days. You will need to reinvent yourself more than once in your career. Apprenticeships offer that opportunity. So
yeah, no, that's perfect. That's what we went through in tutor time. We shared our career paths. Well, I shared my career path and Mr. White shared his and stuff, because I just think, as you say, everybody has to change and adapt and everything else, and you'll start off in one role and then you will generally end up in a different role as well sometimes, so it's good. It's just how it goes. And obviously with the difficult circumstances that we're facing at the moment, again, just email and we'll keep doing these career sessions and everything. So although you're not in school, we are helping you get to where you need to get to as much as we can.
Don't lose faith. It'll be fine in the end, I'm sure. Just keep working hard.
It will. Okay, well, that's brilliant. Well, one final shout out for any other questions. Somebody's typing, but that might just be, that's a thank you. So that's cool. Well, thank you, Alex. That was really good. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I know it was fairly short notice. We had planned it, hadn't we, Alex, for when we were coming back to school, but then obviously lockdown happened, so we had to reschedule it. So I just wanted to get it in as quickly as I could. But now we'll start getting some other sessions sorted and get them out to you. And hopefully this time of night works for people. And yeah, we'll just keep doing as much as we can. But thank you all for showing up, and thank you, Alex, for everything.
That's great. Thanks ever so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.